Early on a Saturday morning, I like to go to the market in North Ormesby. You can get a week's supply of fruit and vegetables for the price of a single watermelon in one of the stores. And you can get other stuff, out of print books, DVDs, that sort of thing. In an ideal world, it being a Sabbath, and me being an observant Rastafarian, I'm supposed to refrain from commerce and stay at home. But this is Middlesbrough. When you're the only Rastafarian in town, there's not a lot to do in place of refraining from commerce and staying at home. North Ormesby Market was as vibrant, noisy, and colourful as I've always known it. Besides food, I managed to get my hands on a 1974 edition of Neven's Protector. That would pass the suburb most pleasantly and nostalgically. The lady who sold me the fruit and veg ran a counterfeit detecting pen over my tenor. She looked a little taken aback when I, with considerable aplomb, returned the compliment on the fiver she gave me as part of my change. I'm sure she still had her eye on me as I headed towards the bus stop. Hello, Thule. What are you doing around here this early? Grinning affably, Jez Malley got up from the bus stop shelter bench to greet me. There were two other people waiting for the bus, an elderly couple who eyed us with mild interest. It's a free country, you know, I said. Just been to the market. Now I'm off to town to get the things the market doesn't supply. Oh, you don't want to go into town today, mate, said Jez, his grin fading. Them far right lot are marching today. Is that where you're going? I asked, laughing. England for the English, what? Most white people in this town are the same as you, sir, said the elderly woman, addressing me. We're descendants of Irish migrants who came here in search of a better life, same as you people are now. I'm not nearly old enough to be a father, husband said, and I can remember when us Irish were not considered white. So, whoever the far right is marching for, it is not for the majority of the people of Middlesbrough. We're going to the counter rally, the wife said proudly. You're welcome to join along. What's your name? Tulisi, I said. Lips faltering, she nodded her head as if to shake the spoken name out. Then she turned to her husband for help. We call him Thule, said Jez. Can never get my English tongue around that. I like Thule, the wife said. I'm Maureen, and this is my husband Ben. I repeated their names as I shook hands with them. Maureen said, Oh, and he can say our names very well. Yeah, I was going to say, said Ben. Were you born here, if you don't mind my asking? Your accent is rather posh. English is a third language, I said. I was born in Zimbabwe. The most widely spoken native language is Shona, followed by Sindebele, which is my first language. But everyone speaks English. The entire education system is in English. I must say, you speak it better than most of us, said Ben. If I'd heard you speaking on the phone, I would have never guessed you were from Africa. I mean, you don't sound like... He frowned with the effort to remember. Mo, where's that guy from? The one from the pub. The one who's always preaching and says he can drive away evil spirits. Tunde, his wife offered. Yes, that's the one. Lovely lad. Bit crazy about Jesus and stuff, but he's all right. I think he said he's from Nigeria, Ben, said Maureen. Yes, Nigeria, said Ben. Is that near your country then? No, it isn't. I don't think anyone noticed that I was speaking slowly when I answered. Right. Still, you sound nothing like him. He has this really proper African accent, but you sound like a gentleman. I bet you could fool them far right if you spoke to them on the phone. Husband and wife laughed at this. Here's the bus, said Jez. I still think you should reconsider going to town, Thule. Well, I'm going, I said. An observer of auras would have discerned a tinge of resentment at being told where to go by another person. I'm just going to Captain Cook Square, and I'm sure these far right will be doing Borough Road and other main streets. I got on the bus before Jez, so I wouldn't have to find him waiting for me with a free seat next to him. Like me, he already had a bus pass, which he flashed at the driver and slid past me. The driver held out a hand towards my pass. I gave him the wallet, and he pulled the pass out to peer at it closely. Satisfied, he returned it to the wallet and handed it back to me. Jez leaned against the window and indicated to the seat to his right. I sank in with a sigh. "How's the business, Jez?" asked. "I thought I saw you on your Facebook. You were in Estonia the other day." "Yeah, I registered a company there," I said. "It's a lot easier being offshore and anonymous. A lot easier than being a refugee from Zimbabwe." I had a dozen promising inquiries and the prospect of credit in the tens of thousands of pounds. Staff at the banks on the high street I'd approached about even a short-term overdraft had smiled wryly and explained politely that without a long banking history, there was nothing they could do for me. They advised me to consider the different business opportunities for BAME communities in the town and perhaps bring my project down to a more modest scale. "Well, I don't know anything about any of that," said Jez. Maureen and Ben sat ahead of us on the other side of the aisle. "You are really clever, you know, and you really go out there doing things." "I have to be, Jez," I said, shrugging. "Out there is where the opportunities are." "Yeah," Jez agreed. Jez had a community interest company that taught English to immigrants. Anyone who's received an email from him would have found the idea of Jez teaching anyone English uproariously funny. But he'd got the contract, and the Zambian former schoolteacher who had paid me 200 to write his bid hadn't. We passed the university on Borough Road, and still no sign of the far right. There was a higher than usual police presence, though. I got off at Linthorpe Road, mumbling to Jess that I needed to get something from the pet shop, not allowing him a chance to offer to come along. What I needed was breakfast. Lucky for me, there was a lovely cafe that knew that some people only use alternatives to dairy in their tea, and that eggs and cheese are not vegan options. As I ate, I think I overheard far right 6 times in the chatter going on around me. In the end, I couldn't take it anymore. I asked a gothic-looking girl, almost certainly a student at Teesside University, where the far right were marching. "Oh, they'll be at the town square now," she said, glancing at her mobile phone. "But they'll do Borough Road and Albert Street and Coronation, and then gather at a pub. We're doing a counter rally, and you're welcome to come along." "Yeah, you're welcome to the so-called far right rally too, you know," a balding middle-aged man, who sat near the door said. The accent was definitely London. Heads raised expectantly. None of the cafe staff had noticed yet. The waitress who had served me had just retreated to the back, and the young man at the till was looking at his phone. "That's not the impression I got, sir," I said. "Don't believe the media," the man said, glancing around. "We are patriots, not hate-mongers. If you live here, you're English." He zeroed on me. "Correct me if I'm wrong, sir, but you look like a Rastafarian." "Yes, I am," I said. "I am a Rastafarian." "Which," I glanced around to address everyone else, "is why a black man is having breakfast in this particular cafe. Veganism is a tenet of our faith." I wanted to add, maybe next time you guys want to ease up on the suspicious stares every time I come in here. And look at how Rastafarians are integrated in English society, the EDL supporter said. Reggae music is loved by everyone. I wondered if you had ever heard the dub poetry track England is a Bitch by Linton Kwesi Johnson. He zeroed on me again. Bob Marley's Confrontation album. The cover depicts St. George, England's patron saint, as a Rastafarian. Well, I think Bob Marley was thinking of the fact that St. George was a patron saint of Ethiopia for over 1,000 years before he was an English one, I said. Of course, the far right supporter agreed with me, but it shows how we are linked. Why the Rastafarian is so at home here and bothers no one, and no one bothers him. He's also one of the few Christian saints revered by Muslims, I said. Who? Bob Marley? Someone asked. No, St. George, I said. Yeah, but how many Muslims are saying that in public? The far right supporter asked. All we hear from their spokespersons is hate. Sir, I have to rush now, I said, opening the door. Nice talking to you, sir, the far right supporter said. I hope you can find the time to see the march. There'll be people there to answer any questions you might have. My new Gothic friend was walking ahead with about 3 or 4 companions. Albert Road was closed to vehicular traffic. On the town square, near the pond, across from the Middlesbrough Institute of Modern Art building, there was a large, noisy crowd gathered. As I got closer, I realized that this was in fact the counter-rally. The far right was already marching. The last of them were disappearing around the corner on the other side of the pond towards Jetburg Street. The absence of traffic only accentuated how much of a handful of enthusiastic souls the far right actually were. About 15, almost all men of varying ages, were braving the mid-morning sun to stem the tide of the Islamic onslaught. The St. George's Cross flags poised defiantly. I've seen pub brawls better manned. Based on what I'd already seen of the marches on YouTube, I thought it was a good thing they were moving away from the predominantly Asian Abington Road area now. By the time they reached Albert Road, I decided there was really nothing to see. Yet, people were lining up to jeer at them. The police might still be needed after all. I walked past the far-right members. When I looked behind, they were turning into Albert Road, headed back towards the square. You have nothing to worry about, pet, said a matronly, sincere woman. We don't like them here, but we like you. Nice hair, by the way. I mumbled my thanks and walked on. I pushed all further thought of the far right, the counter-rally, Jez, the lousy but well-paid English teacher, Maureen and Ben, and the matronly, sincere woman out of my mind. I was keen to go home and start on my protector. On Linthorpe Road, the new security guard in the shop followed me everywhere. I decided to ignore him. I did not have time to innocently take my business elsewhere. When I made my exit, he stood at the door. I crossed over to the other side of the road and waited for the bus. It came 30 minutes later. I flashed my pass at the driver, noting he was the same one who had brought me into town earlier that morning. He tapped his fingers impatiently on the side where passengers slip coins to pay tickets or pick up change. I put the pass down. He picked it up and he pulled the printed slip out of its plastic wallet and scrutinized it for a few seconds. Then he placed it back in the wallet and put it down where I could retrieve it. I found a seat and got my protector from the North Ormesby Market bag. No one asked to inspect that. The end.